You're watching Let the Quran Speak, and now we're answering your questions. Dr. Shabir, this is a very timely question. It says, some of my family members died in the earthquake in Morocco. Soon after, there was a storm in Libya that killed many people. Is Allah punishing them? Why does it seem like so many bad things happen to really good people? How do you respond, Dr. Shabir?
In fact, somebody wrote a book about that a long time ago. It's actually entitled Why Bad Things Happen to Good People. It's actually by a Jewish scholar, Harold Kushner.
Because it's a question that everybody grapples with, regardless of religion or even whether they have religion or not.
Yes, and that book, is decades old, so it's not a new question. It's and it's not only about Muslims. It's universal. So things happen, and sometimes good people are afflicted. So within Islamic theology, there could be many explanations for that. One, and a very simple thing that people, jump upon very quickly is to say, okay, this is God's punishment for people. But if we say that somebody who has been recently afflicted or, their loved ones have died in such a tragedy, then this may sound cruel and uncaring. So we don't want to emphasize that route. It's a possibility. In the one event, God could be accomplishing many things, and one person might be punished because of their sins in the same event in which another person might be tested for their fortitude and patience. So it's not that this second person committed any sins worthy of punishment, but God is, in His own unique way, elevating the status of this servant by giving them this test. We know that the higher we develop in our own studies, the more difficult the test. So the test at university level is going to be higher and more difficult than the test at the high school level. And the greater the level of test that you pass, the higher you rise in your degrees. It's so natural. So in a similar way, in a spiritual realm, people rise in degrees by passing various tests. So sometimes even good people are being tested, what God sends into the world or allows to happen. And the third thing, now using the word allow, and now that is a segue into my third point, because God may simply be allowing certain things to happen. It's not that He coldly calculates and says, I want to afflict the world with this earthquake or this volcano or this tornado or whatever the case is, or floods in the case of Libya now. In the Bible, in the book of Revelation, there is this mention of all of these bowls of God's wrath being poured out upon the world. So I don't think in Islamic theology we necessarily have to think about it in that way, that God is deciding, okay, let me strike the people here. It could be that certain things are happening naturally in the world that God created. God created the world for a purpose, and the purpose is to produce human beings like us who will choose to worship God, even though we could have chosen to turn away. To have human beings with free will, there has to be a certain degree of randomness in the whole creation itself, leading up to human beings. And so in the sort of random events that operate within the allowances that God has given, there could be volcanoes and earthquakes and hurricanes and typhoons and floods and the breakage of dams and so on. There's a natural cause and effect in operation here. And many people will suffer as a result, but the overall system is good, and it produces the desired result, which is to get people like us who will have the freedom to choose between good and evil. Otherwise, if God wanted, He could have made everything mechanical, and then we would be a products of a mechanical system. And if we are products of a mechanical system, we ourselves will be mechanical. And all of our thoughts, all of our inclinations would owe themselves to some natural occurrence prior to our birth even, or a sequence of occurrences leading up to us and our development.
So, Dr. Shabir, maybe it's not a good idea to ask these questions then in a time of tragedy. Maybe it's a time to ask a different question, like what lessons can we learn from this tragedy, or how do we move forward, and how do we be of service to people who need it, because probably that's what God is calling us to do in this circumstance.
Yes, you're right. These are all very good questions that we should be asking. First and foremost, how can we help the afflicted? Because it becomes a responsibility on the shoulders of all people everywhere. Our fellow humans are struck with a disaster, it could have been us. And even if it couldn't have been us, even if we feel ourselves to be fortified, we must have that compassion towards our fellow human beings, and we must rise to help them in their time of great need. So we shouldn't be in the mood to condemn anyone, but we should be in at the forefront of helping everyone. And yes, we can learn lessons from it. One of the lessons that Muslims can learn from this is that, the Quran says that you should be aware of a fitna, of an affliction, which will not necessarily afflict only the people who are oppressive or those who are wrongdoers. And that seems to mean that even Muslims who are good people may suffer from such disasters. This is further elaborated in a hadith that are attributed to our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, indicating that if Muslims fail to deliver the message from God, they might also suffer the consequences that would visit other people. And there is even a narrative that says that, it goes something like this, that God was sending his angels to afflict a certain town. And the angels say, but, God, there is that righteous person there who didn't do anything wrong. And God said, okay, start with him. Now, I'm not saying that this is authentic, but like the narrative itself.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea seems to be here that if you're righteous yourself, but you're not doing anything to help the other people out of their unrighteousness, then you are not only equally to blame, you are even more to blame because you have the guidance from God and you're not doing anything with it. The other people, okay, maybe they have some excuse, they haven't gotten the guidance or whatever, but you have it. So why are you silent about it? So it may be that we should take a lesson from this and say we ought to be giving the message of God to the wider world so that the world could repair itself. It is mentioned that Zainab, the mother of the believers, asked the Prophet, peace be upon him, her husband, a messenger of God, if God afflicts the bad people, will we also suffer from that? And the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, yes, when the evil becomes widespread. And if we ask about the evils that have become widespread now, we have a litany of evils. So what are we Muslims doing about that? That's one of the things we can reflect upon and ask God to forgive us and, get on our feet, as the Quran says, kumfa andir, rise up and warn people.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Shabir, how would you respond if someone says, look, are these earthquakes, these storms, these floods, they're just part of like a natural disaster, they're just part of science and nature. It has nothing to do with God.
We would say to a certain extent you're right. Rather than saying God did this, we would rather say from the point of view of Islamic theology that God allowed this to happen and it's part of the natural system, yes. But to speak of the natural systems as if there is no God altogether, then to me this is problematic. Because if there's no God, then the whole system would appear to be very bleak. There will be no hope. It looks like we don't know what's going to happen to us tomorrow. An asteroid could hit the Earth and wipe us all out, and the whole life would be meaningless. This world itself would be of no value, really. But if we have God in the picture, then yes, there is a disaster now that God has permitted to occur for his own good reasons. And he may bring good effects out of this bad situation. God could have, in his great calculation, has seen that, okay, this is bad, but if I allow it, then so many good things will come out of it.
Because he's dealing with an imperfect world.
Yes, exactly. It's almost like, if you want to carve something out of rock, then you have to get your hammer and chisel, and it's going to be noisy. And you're going to be breaking away pieces, okay, in order to form the perfect sculpture that you want to get out of that rock. So our world is like this. God sometimes has to make tough decisions and allow some disasters to happen in order to bring about good things. Like an earthquake, for example. An earthquake actually brings fertile soil from the depths of the earth to the surface. And had it not been for earthquakes, the earth would not be fertile. We would not have crops. We would not have anything to eat.
Mm-hmm.
So God calculates all of the effects, good and bad, and then decides I'm going to allow this and I'm not going to allow the other thing. So what God allows seems bad enough, but things could have been worse. And that's what the believer says, okay, this happened to me, God, but I know something worse could have happened. And I thank you that it's not the worst thing that happened, and it's only this one, which is bad enough. But I ask you to remove this as well and save us from all afflictions. So without God, the whole thing looks bleak. It looks like one day we have an earthquake, the next day we have a flood, dam breaking, and another day we have a typhoon and so on. So it looks like all of the forces are out against us, and we're just, puny humans in a vast universe that we cannot control. It does not even have a future because it may die a heat death, or whatever. The universe will collapse in on itself eventually, just as it expanded in the first place, and there's no reason even to life, and the whole thing seems meaningless. So yes, we need to have God in the picture, and we can say that though the situation is bad, God will be bringing about much good. One of the good things that will come out of this is the charitableness of people. People will rise to the occasion, as they already are rising, offering charitable assistance to those who are afflicted. People are already re-examining their lives and asking, okay, if I'm afflicted with a disaster tomorrow, what will all my wealth and everything do for me? Should I persist in my sins, or should I turn back to God repentant? And so on. So people are repairing their lives. People are repairing their relationships. They're realizing how valuable the lives of other human beings is. And they're getting closer in touch with their family and friends, and they cherish each other even more in a situation like this. So there are many good things, and God has calculated them.
All right. Thank you for your time, Dr. Shabir.
You're welcome.
Assalamu alaikum.
We have some exciting news to share with you.
As you know, Let the Quran Speak has been on TV screens and social media for 22 years.
We've been reaching people all around the world, spreading positivity and good, and helping people experience the beauty of Islam and the accomplishments of Muslims.
We've been shooting in this very space for the past 2 decades.
And now, with the help of Allah, we're about to get the keys to Muslim Media Hub.
If you like what we're doing, you're gonna love Muslim Media Hub even more.
Because it's the next step up.
Think new TV shows, podcasts, social media content, and films.
We'll have new talent, more youth, and a lot more space and resources to do what we love. Spread the message of Allah.
Our Muslim Media Hub costs $2.4 million.
We must close on this building on October 16, and for that, we need to raise $300,000.
How will we raise $300,000?
Easy, Safiya. All we need is 300 people to give $1,000 each.
If you can be one of this select 300, that's fantastic.
Otherwise, please give whatever you can. Every dollar counts.
It's our collective responsibility to share the message of Islam with our fellow human beings. Please help establish Muslim Media Hub so we can do this.
It's a sadaqah jariyah, something that will continue to be of benefit to the Muslim community long after we are gone.
Thank you, and may Allah bless you and your loved ones today and always.
Assalamu alaikum.